Terran was not a soldier. He was not a hero. He was just a junior medic on Harmony Ring, a peaceful space station floating quietly near the edge of the Andromeda Passage. The station was known for one thing: it welcomed all species, no matter what world they came from. Every day Terran checked the medical bay, helped injured travelers, and shared lunch with robots or quiet plant-based aliens who spoke in humming sounds. His life was simple, calm, and peaceful. But one cold morning changed everything. A small, damaged starship drifted toward the station. It sent no message. Its engine sparked like a broken light. The outer hull was scorched, and the ship looked ready to fall apart. The station's scanners found only one life form inside. When the ship docked, guards and officers rushed to the bay expecting trouble. But inside the ruined ship, they found a tall alien woman sitting on the floor. Long, silver-white hair was messy, her robe torn, and her glowing violet eyes stared forward without fear. She was hurt, but she didn't ask for help. She only said one thing: "I surrender." No one knew who she was yet. They took her to the secure medical cell, where all unknown aliens were treated under watch. Some thought she might be a spy. Others believed she was dangerous. Terran just saw a person in pain. He entered the room with calm steps. As the alien woman sat on the small bed, silent. A cut on her forehead bled slowly. Her hands shook slightly, though she tried to hide it. Taren knelt beside her. "I'm not here to harm you," he said gently. "I just want to help." The alien looked at him. Her violet eyes were sharp but tired. "I don't trust humans," she said. Terran smiled, not offended. "That's okay," he replied. "I'm not asking for trust. It's just permission to stop that bleeding." For a few seconds, she said nothing. Then she nodded once. Terran cleaned her wounds carefully. He worked with quiet respect, not treating her like a prisoner or enemy. He noticed her skin shimmered like soft moonlight, and her bones were slightly thinner than a human's. Her breathing pattern was strange but steady. After cleaning her wounds, he handed her a cup of warm herbal broth. She didn't take it at first, but the smell seemed to calm her. Slowly she drank. The next day the truth came out. The alien woman was not just anyone. She was Queen Thalara of Zyrene, ruler of a distant and powerful alien empire. Her people were proud, powerful, and known for keeping their distance from humans. Some even called them cold-hearted. But now their queen was sitting in a human medbay, injured and alone. The officers were shocked. They quickly offered her a royal room, protection, and luxury. But she refused it all. "I came to escape," she said. "I don't need luxury. I need peace." And so, she remained in the medical wing, under quiet watch. Terran continued to check on her every day. He brought her clean robes, fresh tea, and sometimes books translated into her language. He never asked about her past or the rebellion that forced her to flee. He simply treated her as a guest. One evening, Thalara sat by the window, looking out at the stars. She spoke without turning. "Why do you keep helping me?" Terran paused. Then he said, "Because you need help." "That is not an answer," she replied. Terran chuckled softly. "Maybe not. But it's the truth." She finally turned to look at him. Her eyes, though tired, held a strange warmth. "Humans are strange," she said. "Strange in a good way or a bad way?" he asked. "I have not decided yet." From that day, something changed. Thalara stopped avoiding his gaze. She even asked him about Earth, about music, and about flowers that bloom only during winter. Terran, in turn, began to notice her differently. She was not just a queen, she was a person. One who had carried heavy burdens. One who now sat quietly in a room far from home, wearing simple clothes and drinking weak human tea. Sometimes, when she thought no one was watching, Thalara would touch the clay flower he had placed on her side table, a small thing he had shaped. With his own hands, it was a simple gift, yet she treated it like something rare. Other medics whispered behind his back. "Why spend so much time with her?" they asked. "She's not even one of us." But Terran didn't care. One morning, Thalara surprised him. You look tired, Terran, she said. You should rest more. He blinked. You noticed? I see more than you think, she replied softly. Then for the first time, she smiled. It was a small smile, hidden quickly, but it was real. Terran felt something warm spark in his chest. He didn't know what it was. He just knew that she was no longer just a patient. She had become something more. Someone he wanted to protect. Someone he wanted to understand. And maybe, just maybe, someone who had started to care in return. Life on Harmony Ring slowly returned to normal. But something had changed for both Terran and Queen Thalara. Every day after her wounds had healed, Thalara began walking in the garden dome of the station. It was a peaceful place filled with plants. From different planets, Earth's sunflowers, blue leaf vines from Zevon, and floating petals from the gas moon of Pellier. She walked alone at first, silent, observing. But after a few days, Terran began joining her. He never forced conversation. He just walked beside her, sometimes telling quiet stories about Earth, about the sound of ocean waves, the smell of rain on dry soil, or how birds sang in the early morning. Thalara listened. At first, she didn't respond. But slowly, her silence turned into questions. What is a rainbow? She asked one day. It's light and water dancing together, Terran answered, smiling. It's beautiful. She blinked slowly. Your planet has many small wonders. It does, he said. But so does yours, I'm sure. Thalara didn't speak for a long moment. Then she said, I haven't thought of my world like that in a long time. Their walks became routine. Every evening, after their duties, they met in the garden. Terran would bring a small thermos of tea. Sometimes he brought small things, a music device, with soft earth melodies, a sketchbook with flowers drawn by hand, or a simple puzzle game made of wood. Thalara was curious. She asked about books, about children, about earth dances, and human laughter. One evening she said, You live without crowns or thrones, yet you smile more than any ruler I have seen. Terran laughed gently. Smiling doesn't cost anything, Thalara replied. But not everyone remembers how. That evening, Thalara touched one of the garden's flowers, a white one from Earth called jasmine. I've seen this before, she said. In a dream, maybe. You can keep it, Terran said. She looked at him. Your people give gifts so easily. On Zyrene, gifts are given only for deals, for power, or duty, Terran replied. On Earth, we sometimes give gifts just to say, I care. She looked away, her voice softer. That is rare among queens. Later that night, Terran made something for her, a small clay flower, shaped like the jasmine she had admired. He placed it on the table in her room with a small note, for your dreams. The next day, she didn't speak of it. But the clay flower sat on her bedside, carefully cleaned and never moved. As the days passed, officers on the station began talking. Some thought it was strange that the human medic and the alien queen spent so much time together. But Captain Erasa, who commanded Harmony Ring, said nothing. She simply watched, knowing that something important was growing, something rare. One day, Thalara surprised Terran with a question. Would you like to see how we greet friends on Zyrene? Terran raised an eyebrow. Is it dangerous? She smiled. Only if you fear kindness. She gently placed 2 fingers over his wrists, then touched her own forehead. It was a short, graceful movement, almost like a bow. It means, I see the light in you, she explained. Terran slowly copied her movement. Wasn't sure if he did it right, but Thalara gave a small nod of approval. That was nice, he said. She tilted her head. Nice. That is such a small word. He grinned. It fits. They both laughed. It was the first time Thalara laughed in front of him. Her laughter was soft, light, like the sound of wind through crystal leaves. One evening, the garden dome lights flickered. Storm in a nearby solar system had disturbed the power. Terran and Thalara sat under a large tree from planet Yulin, watching the glowberries shine. She spoke quietly. I've never told you why I fled, she said. Tan didn't say anything, he only waited. There was a rebellion, she continued. Some of my own generals turned against me. They said I was too soft, ... That I listened too much to other species. They wanted war. I wanted peace. Taryn looked at her gently. That doesn't make you weak. It makes you brave. Alaria looked at him with strange eyes. Do you believe so? Yes, he said. Anyone can fight, but only a few choose to understand instead. She stared at him for a long moment. You speak like a leader. Just a medic, he said, smiling. You are more than that. Later that week, her ship returned. A message came from her world. The rebellion had ended. Loyal forces had regained control. Her people needed her back. The queen was called home. When Taryn heard the news, he felt a strange pain in his chest. He had known from the beginning that she would leave. Still, it hurt more than he expected. She came to say goodbye. Her robe was clean now, her crown returned, though she still wore it lightly. Tayan tried to speak, but his words didn't come out before leaving. Thalera handed him something wrapped in soft silver cloth. It was a small, glowing teardrop-shaped stone. This is for you, she said. Only activate it when you feel completely alone. He tried to return it. You don't need to give me anything. But she stepped closer. This is not a gift of duty, she said. It's a gift of trust. And then she leaned forward, just enough for her forehead to touch his. I see the light in you, Taryn. Then she turned and walked away. Taryn watched her ship leave the station. The glowing teardrop stone sat in his hand. He didn't know what it would do, but something inside him whispered that it would change everything. Taryn returned to his normal routine on Harmony Ring, but everything felt different now. He still worked in the medical bay, still treated patients, still smiled at visitors. But deep inside, something had changed. There was a quiet space in his heart where Queen Thalara used to be. The garden dome wasn't the same without her. The jasmine flowers still bloomed, but they didn't feel as bright. He often found himself sitting by the glowing trees, staring at the stars, wondering where she was. Was she safe? Was she smiling? Did she still think of their walks and simple talks? He had no answers. The small glowing teardrop stone she gave him sat on his desk, untouched. Wrapped in silver cloth, it gave off a soft, pulsing light every few days. Taryn didn't open it, remembered her words clearly. Only activate it when you feel completely alone. He didn't want to use it, not yet. Part of him hoped she might return on her own. One quiet night, Taryn was alone in the medical bay. Everyone else had gone to rest. The soft hum of machines filled the room. He sat at the edge of his bed, holding the silver-wrapped stone in his hand. He thought about her, again, her calm voice, her silver-white hair, the way she listened to his stories even when she didn't understand everything. Most of all, he remembered the way she had touched her forehead to his and said, I see the light in you. Taryn closed his eyes. He felt alone. Truly, completely alone. He unwrapped the stone. As soon as the silver cloth fell away, the stone began to glow brighter, and it floated up from his hand, spinning slowly in the air. A warm light surrounded him, soft like moonlight and gentle like her voice. Then everything changed. There was no sound, no floor beneath his feet. Just light, and then with a soft flash, found himself standing in a strange new place. It wasn't Harmony. Ring It was a wide-open field filled with tall blue grass and crystal flowers. The sky was pale lavender. 2 suns floated above the horizon. In the distance, silver mountains rose like frozen waves. Taryn looked around, amazed. He touched the grass. It shimmered under his fingers. Then a soft voice spoke behind him. Welcome, Taryn. Turned. A tall woman stood there, wearing a flowing robe of white and silver. Her hair was braided, her eyes glowing violet. It was Thalara, but not in person. This was a holographic image sent through the gift. If you're seeing this, she said, then it means you opened the stone, and you were ready. Taryn took a step closer, watching her image with quiet eyes. I could not take. You with me? The voice continued. But I could leave behind a path. The hologram raised one hand, and a glowing gate appeared beside her. Step through this, she said. and you will be taken to the heart of Zyrene, a hidden place, one that only a few know." Then she smiled gently. "You once told me you were just a medic, but you are much more than that. You gave me peace when I had nothing. Now, I give you a purpose. If you choose to walk forward, you will not be alone." The image faded. The gate still glowed. Terran stood in silence. His heart beat loudly in his chest. Then he stepped forward in. An instant, he was standing on a different world, Zyrene. Queen Thalara's home planet. The air was cool and smelled like spices. The ground shimmered slightly under his feet. Alien trees curved like spirals. Small glowing birds flew quietly overhead. A group of people stood nearby. Children, alien children with silver eyes. Some wearing simple robes, others holding learning tablets. They stared at him with wide, curious eyes. A kind-looking alien woman stepped forward. She smiled. "You must be Terran. The Queen told us to expect you." Terran blinked. "Expect me?" "Yes," she said. "This is the Solari Grova, peaceful. Place for learning and healing. These children lost their families in the rebellion. The Queen said, you were someone who could help them, teach them, guide them." Terran looked around again. Children waved at him, some smiling shyly. Others held up small drawings. One picture showed Thalara standing beside a stick figure with brown hair. "But I'm not a teacher," Terran said softly. The woman smiled. "That's what the Queen said too. But she also said you have a rare gift. Compassion." Terran stayed. Days turned into weeks. He began teaching the children simple words in Earth language. They taught him songs from Zyrene. Together they painted, planted flowers, and shared meals. Every night he sat by a glowing tree and thought of Thalara. The children often sat beside him, asking stories about Earth. One child, a small girl with silver braids, gave him a clay flower she made herself. "It's for your dreams," she whispered. Terran held the gift gently. His heart warmed, he realized. Something Thalara's gift had not only brought him across space, it had given him a new purpose, a new life, a second chance. Terran's days on Zyrene were filled with peace, learning, and quiet joy. The children in the Solari Grove looked up to him. They called him Terran Teacher in their soft voices. Some still had nightmares from the war, but when Terran sat beside them, told stories, or gently placed a hand on their shoulders, they began to sleep better. He taught them Earth games, like Shadow Tag and Stone Balance. They taught him how to sing in the Zyrene tongue language, full of hums and soft tones. Though he often sang off-key, the children laughed kindly, never mocking him. The woman who first welcomed him, Lorette, the head caretaker, became a close friend. She helped him understand Zyrene customs. She told him, "You are the first human to walk in Solari Grove, but it feels like you belong here." Terran never forgot the strange path that brought him to this place. Each evening, he would sit under a star trees, branches glowing blue, and hold the small stone Thalara had given him. He missed her. He wondered if she missed him too. One afternoon, while playing with the children near the crystal pond, a young boy named Roland ran to him, excited. "Teacher! Teacher!" he shouted. "Come quickly. The gate has opened again." Terran stood up and followed the children to the edge of the grove. There, beside the singing stones, a glowing portal had formed, the same kind of gate that had brought him. Here, and from the light stepped Queen Thalara. She looked just as he remembered, calm, graceful, dressed in white robes, her silver hair tied behind her head. But something in her eyes had changed. They were softer now. The children ran to her, hugging her gently. She knelt and hugged them back, smiling. Terran stayed back. Watching, Thalara stood and walked toward him. "I see the light in you," she said softly. Terran smiled. "It's good to see you again, Thalara." She looked at him for a long moment. "You've changed," he laughed. "I think the children did that." "They say you have brought joy back to the grove," she said, "and hope." Terran looked down. "They helped me too." Thalara stepped closer. "When I gave you the stone, I wasn't sure if you would open it. But I hoped. I waited," Terran replied, "because I wasn't sure if it was for me, or if it was just part of a goodbye." Thalara smiled sadly. It was never a goodbye. It was a beginning. That evening, a celebration was held in the grove. Lights danced in the trees, and the children wore flower crowns. Food from both Earth and Zyrene was served: fruit pastries, glowing noodles, and warm bread filled with sweet roots. Thalara sat beside Terran at the long table. She listened as he spoke to the children in broken Zyrene language, smiling at every mistake he made. When he taught them a silly Earth song, she even laughed. Later, they walked together under the stars. "I thought ruling a world meant being strong and serious all the time," Thalara said. "But you lead in a different way." "I don't lead," Terran said. "I just care." "That's exactly why they follow you," she whispered. They walked in silence, steps matching. The night wind was cool, and the trees swayed gently. Then Thalara stopped and turned to him. "There's something I must tell you." Laren looked at her, waiting. "When I returned to the capital," she said, "my advisors wanted me to forget. This place, they said Solari Grove, was only for the broken and the weak. They told me to focus on power and control." She looked away, "But I couldn't forget. I couldn't forget you." Terran's voice was quiet. "Why did you come back, Thalara?" Turned to him again, eyes full of emotion. "Because I realized something. Power without compassion is empty. Wow. And I remembered how you looked at me not as a queen, but as a person." She paused. "I came back because I missed that feeling." The next day, Thalara met with Lyra and the other caretakers. She announced that Solari Grove would no longer be hidden. It would become a center of peace and learning, open to all species, including humans. Many were surprised. Some were unsure, but Thalara stood firm. And beside her, Terran stood as well. Later, she spoke with Terran privately. "I want you to stay," she said. "It's not just as a visitor, but as someone who helps build this place." Terran blinked. "You mean like an advisor?" She nodded. "Yes. You understand both worlds. You bring balance. I want your voice beside mine." Terran looked at the children playing nearby. He looked at the trees, the mountains, the peace he had found. Then he looked at Thalara, the woman who had once been a quiet patient in a cold med-dash bay. He smiled. "I'll stay." That night, under the glowing sky, the people of Solari Grove lit lanterns and sent them floating into the air. Each lantern carried a hope, a promise, or a memory. Dot's lantern carried a single quote: "Thank you for finding me." Thalara watched it rise and whispered, "You were never lost." The sun rose slowly over the crystal mountains of Zyrene, casting long shadows across the peaceful Solari Grove. The air was fresh and sweet with the scent of blooming flowers and the soft songs of silver-winged birds. Terran stood outside the learning hall, watching the children gather for their morning lessons. Their laughter filled the air, light and free. He smiled softly. This place had become his home, and the children his new family. But today, a different feeling stirred inside him, a feeling of anticipation. Queen Thalara had been away for weeks, visiting the capital and handling urgent matters. Now she was returning. The news spread quickly through the grove. The children buzzed with excitement. Even the elders seemed eager. Terran wondered what the queen's return would bring. When Thalara arrived, the entire grove gathered to welcome her. Her presence was commanding, yet gentle. She moved with grace, her silver hair catching the sunlight like a crown of stars. Torn stepped forward to greet her. "It is good to be home," Thalara said softly, her eyes meeting his. "You've been missed," Terran replied. She smiled, but there was a sadness beneath her calm. Later, in the quiet of the evening, Thalara invited Terran to walk with her beneath the glowing star trees. "There is something I must tell you, Dar," he began. Terran listened carefully. "In the capital, my advisors have changed," she said. "They no longer see kindness as a strength. They want me to rule with fear and control, to forget the lessons of Solari Grove." Terran's heart tightened. "What will you do?" Thalara looked ahead, her face firm. "I will not forget. I cannot forget the peace I found here, or the hope you have given me." She paused. "But I need help. The Empire is vast and full of challenges. I cannot face it alone." Terran's eyes widened. "You want me to stand with you?" Yes, she said. It's my advisor, my friend, someone who understands both worlds. Terran felt a surge of honor and fear. I will stand with you. The next days were filled with meetings, plans, and visits. Terran found himself in the heart of the Empire's government, surrounded by powerful leaders and ancient traditions. Some looked at him with suspicion, others whispered behind their hands. But Terran did not falter. He spoke with calm honesty. It reminded the leaders of the strength and compassion, of the power and peace. Slowly, minds began to change. The children of Solari Grove were no longer seen as broken or weak. They became symbols of hope. The Empire began to open its gates to other species. Trade increased. Our old enemies met for talks instead of battles. One evening, as Terran and Thalara walked through the palace gardens, she stopped and took his hand. You changed this empire, she said quietly. Terran shook his head. We changed it together, she smiled, her eyes shining with gratitude and something deeper. In that moment, Terran realized how far they had come from strangers on a cold space. Station 2 partners shaping a new future. The story of the human medic and the alien queen spread throughout the Empire and beyond. It became a tale of hope, showing that kindness could bridge worlds and change destinies. For Terran, the gift Thalara had given was more than a glowing stone. It was a chance to heal, to teach, and to build a future where all beings could live in peace. And for Thalara, the compassion of one human reminded her that even in the darkest times, light could be found. Together, they stood ready to face whatever the stars would bring. The gentle light of dawn bathed the Solari Grove in soft gold. Birds with silver feathers sang melodies that seemed to float on the cool morning air. The world of Zyrene was waking up, peaceful and bright. Terran stood on a small hill overlooking the grove. Around him, the children played and laughed, their voices full of hope and joy. The past months had been full of change he never expected. But welcomed with an open heart, he thought about the day he first met Queen Thalara. On the cold space station, her eyes full of pain and doubt. Back then, she was a stranger, distant and proud. She was more than a queen. She was a friend, a leader who had learned to listen, and someone who had given him a gift that changed everything. As Terran watched the children, his thoughts were interrupted by soft footsteps behind him. "Good morning, Terran," Thalara said, her voice warm. He turned and smiled. "Good morning, Thalara. Ready for another day?" She laughed softly. "Always. There is much to do, but also much to enjoy." Together, they walked down the hill toward the heart of the grove. Plants here were vibrant, glowing faintly with a natural light that seemed to pulse with life. The Solari Grove was no longer hidden. It had become a center of learning, peace, and friendship between many worlds. Visitors from distant planets came to study, to share stories, and to build new bonds. Terran had grown into his role as advisor to the Queen. He helped guide decisions that balanced strength with kindness. The Empire was slowly changing old. Rivalries softened, new alliances formed. One afternoon, a messenger arrived from the capital. Terran and Thalara listened carefully as he spoke of a new threat groups who resisted peace and wanted to return to old ways of conflict. The news was worrying. But Terran did not lose hope. "We cannot ignore those who fear change," he said, "but we can show them a better way." Thalara nodded. "Strength without compassion is empty. We will face this together." Their bond, forged through trust and respect, gave them strength. They knew that change was never easy, but it was worth fighting for. Days later, Terran stood before a large crowd in the capital city. Leaders from many worlds had gathered to hear his message. He spoke simply and clearly. "Peace is not weakness." He said, "Compassion is not surrender. Together we can build a future where every being is valued and safe." The crowd listened. Some faces were skeptical, others hopeful, but many nodded in agreement. Among the listeners was an old general, once known for his fierce battles. After the speech, he approached Terran. "You speak with wisdom," the general said. "Perhaps it is time to lay down our weapons and build instead." Taryn smiled. It starts with one step. One act of kindness. Back in the grove, life continued to flourish. Children learned to sing songs from different worlds. They played games that taught teamwork and respect. They planted trees that would grow tall for generations. Taya and Thalara often walked together in the evenings, sharing dreams for the future. One night, under the stars, Thalara spoke quietly. "Your compassion changed me," she said. "You showed me that a true leader listens with their heart." Taryn looked at her, feeling the depth of their journey. "You showed me that kindness can be a power stronger than any weapon." They stood in silence, watching the stars twinkle above. As seasons passed, the empire blossomed. Trade routes opened between distant planets. Art and music flowed freely across worlds. Old enemies became friends, and through it all, Taryn and Thalara's friendship remained a beacon of hope. They never forgot where their story began, in a cold medbay, with a human offering care to a lonely queen. Their journey was proof that even the smallest acts of kindness could change the course of history. One evening, as the twin suns set in golden hues, Taryn and Thalara stood before a crowd in the Solari Grove. "Today," Thalara announced, "we celebrate a new star rising, not just in the sky, but in our hearts. A star that shines with compassion, courage, and hope." She turned to Taryn and smiled. "This star is you, Taryn." The crowd cheered, and Taryn felt a deep warmth in his chest. He looked at Thalara and said simply, "Thank you for your gift, your trust, and your friendship." Together, they looked to the stars, ready for whatever new adventures awaited.